谢谢大家。非常荣幸能够邀请到在座的4位 speaker panelists， 他们应该能够代表全球区块链投资领域的最高水平，也是我们经过非常多努力才把大家聚集到一起来。我相信大家对他们可能有一些基本的了解，有比较传统的背景的。也有呢，在区块链专注于区块链背景的。那他们头部的项目，任何一个说出来大家可能都是耳熟能详的。那我首先可能用中文把我们要讨论的问题，简单跟大家讲一下，然后呢，我可能会用英文跟他们提问，然后他们再来回答。区块链的投资呢，可能真正进入大众的视野，是从2015年，随着很多专业投资机构的了解和参与才开始的。那在过去的5年时间，我们看到越来越多的专业机构、专业投资人的加入。那到现在已经第5个年头了，所以我希望把这些专业的投资机构聚集起来，听听他们对区块链投资这个新兴的领域，他们的策略是什么，他们的实践方式是什么，他们的理解是什么，他们投资的逻辑是什么，以及他们对未来的预期趋势判断是什么。首先从我个人开始，我叫邓超，是 HashKey Capital 的 CEO， 然后呢，我后面会请各位投资人，请他们简单介绍介绍。Guys, like you guys to start with a brief introduction of yourself and your organization.
Hi everyone, my name is Samani. I'm a co-founder and managing partner at Multicoin Capital. We're an investment firm based in the US. We manage a hedge fund and a venture fund, and we invest 13 full-time people, invest all the way from the very seed stage, all the way through Bitcoin and everything in between. We invest in primary and secondary markets, and we are pretty well known for our articles and blog posts. We spend our time focusing on doing research, developing investment theses, and allocating in the space.
Hi everyone, my name is Veradittakit. I'm a partner at Pantera Capital. Pantera Capital has been investing into the crypto blockchain space for the last 6 years, since 2013. So I'd say we're one of the earliest institutional investors to be deploying capital into the space. I've been with Pantera since early 2014. Similar to Kyle, we invest early in companies, so we have a venture capital fund that invests in equity, and also we have hedge funds that invest into tokens. We have about a team of 25 people based in Silicon Valley, and I guess what stands out about us is that we are very, very active in Asia. I think 25% of our investments are outside of the US, and we've invested in quite a few new projects over here in Asia, and it's always great to be back.
Hi, I'm Sam Rosenblum. I'm a partner at Polychain Capital, also based in San Francisco. We manage about $1 billion in assets today across 2 vehicles. One is a crypto protocol fund, and the other is a venture equity fund. We're also about 25 people. We've got an internal engineering group called Polychain Labs that's very hands-on with the portfolio. For us, we definitely like to look very, very early stage, SAFT and seed on the equity side, and then all the way through liquid assets like Bitcoin. So yeah, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is John. I'm the founder of Signum Capital, based in Singapore. We are an investment company that invests in blockchain companies, primarily in both equity and tokens. We started off in early 2017, and right now we have staff strength for about 7 people, probably growing more, relatively new in the market, I would say. But we have done about 50-something companies in the past 2 years. We invest in seed and we invest in the growth stage of the company, and we invest in companies again, should have the potential in those companies.
Thank you all. 虽然大家看到我们几个人坐的场上是比较传统的 panel 的方式，但是我想跟大家讲一下我们这个 panel 有点不一样的地方。我们的问题不是我想出来的，我的很多的问题 是前一段时间我们 HashKey Capital 的同事在中国的社区和全球的社区里面做了一个问卷，大家希望问这几位投资人问一些什么样的问题。所以我今天呢有一些问题其实是代表我们社区里边问的在座的几位人。I was saying that actually many of the questions are not from me, are from the investment and developer and the ecosystem. My colleagues at HashKey Capital have done this survey and we collected questions from the community. So get ready. So the first question is like to set up the background for investment. It's generally agreed that blockchain as a technology is still in its infancy. Many projects, initiatives of nowadays are like baby steps towards a mature stage. And when it comes to investment, many investors would say, especially those who experienced the internet bubble, would say that the blockchain is pretty much like internet in its early stage. So I would like to ask more specifically, in which decade or years blockchain is like internet? In the 1960s, when the ARPA network was created, in the 1970s and 80s, when TCP or IP protocol was created, and ARPA network was became a prototype of internet that connects university computer labs, or in the 90s when HTTP or HTML Windows email emerged and the word internet became popular, or in the 2000s when internet became part of our work and life. So shall we start with John?
That's a good question. I'll stick with 1999. To be honest, with the whole internet lingo that's famous, like everyone's talking about it. To be honest, right now it's still a big word, blockchain. If I go to a conglomerate right now and I say, we're using, why don't you use blockchain technology, and probably solve some of the issues, they would go like, what's blockchain, right? So but now, that was maybe in 2017, when it started getting hot. I think at this stage, blockchain is still the jargon that most companies would try to use, but maybe not understand. But I do hope that it's just going to be a phase where, like, everything that I use is built on blockchain, but I don't know it's on blockchain. And I think that's where the mass adoption has really been settled. So I'll stick with 1999, man.
Sam.
So, to pick a moment in time, I would actually say more like late 80s. However, the caveat would be, I think the cycle will be much, much faster. So I think we'll be at 1993 in no time. I think a lot of people talk about this concept of the Netscape moment in crypto, and this kind of means the moment that we can really usher in mainstream individuals by making everything more usable by them. Honestly, I think we're coming very close to the Netscape moment for developers, but I think for mainstream users, we're still a little ways away. The fact that developers today still need to learn new programming languages to participate in this space, I think means we're not quite there yet. But with some new projects launching soon, WebAssembly will be taken advantage of in a way that developers will be able to come in much broader numbers, and I think that will just speed up the whole process.
Paul? Yeah, I wasn't really investing or doing anything during the 80s and 90s, so I'd say it's just early. I mean, again, we're still trying to figure out which operating system is really going to be, the one that people are going to be building on top of and really gaining mainstream adoption. I'm glad that I'm entering meetings now and I don't have to talk about why there's 21 million Bitcoins or what mining is. I think what 2017 did was really just brought a lot of awareness about what's going on to the mainstream, and I think it's bringing a lot of capital, bringing a lot of developers coming into the ecosystem, and we're starting to really get some more usability from projects, and I think that's going to be really, really important in removing friction for institutions and consumers to get into this space. And once that's solved, I think we're going to really start seeing more utility. And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, so I sometimes struggle with the question of which year or decade we're in, just because today we have the internet, everyone has smartphones, the rate of information dissemination is 10 or 100 times faster than it was previously. And on top of that, in the 90s there was maybe 50,000 or 100,000 developers in the world. Today there's 20 million developers, or maybe 40 million, something like that. So just the scale at which all of the requisite infrastructure is already there, and so it's hard to compare it historically because the rate of progress is probably 10 to 100 times faster now than it was back then. Having said that, we've actually spent quite a bit of time internally kind of projecting how we think the kind of technical roadmaps will kind of progress over the next few years to the best that we reasonably can. And we feel pretty good that the base infrastructure will be usable and more or less visible in about 1 to 2 years' time. And so as that kind of happens, and you don't have to think anymore, then I think the real exponential growth will happen once that's in place.
Okay, thank you. The next question is much easier. The question is, what are your investment strategy or investment thesis, and what are your current focuses or preferred areas of investments? Start with John again.
So investment thesis, I think it goes back to, again, business 101. When it comes to investing in companies, maybe I'll just drag on a little bit here. So when we first started investing, there was more on infrastructure. It's because I come from a traditional background in properties and we do a lot of things. And I felt that if we were to invest in something from the start, infrastructure would be the ideal place, an ideal project, I'll say, or technology to invest in first and then go down the road. But looking at the traditional aspect and today's fundraising strategies, I still look at the team, right? I still look at what they can offer investors. What's the team made about? And we go back to, let's say, like SaaS, right? So SaaS is something I'm very new to. When it first came out, I'm like, well, what's a SaaS? It's not a legal agreement that I'm used to seeing. And as that goes on, we started to, Signum ourselves, we started to add more information to the SaaS, to be honest, so as to protect both the investors and the investee. We started to travel from the infrastructure portion to your level 1s, level 2s, and now you have all your games and that. I think we still, I think it's, like I said, that the infrastructure portion is a bit saturated right now. We are looking for more prominent DMs out there. We are very focused on finance technology right now, as we call it DeFi. We have done a lot of investments in that specific area of finance thus far. So
from an investment strategy perspective, we are long only, so we're fundamental value investors. We want to make investments that we believe can really incrementally move forward the whole ecosystem. So we don't do any shorting or hedging, anything like that, Fortress and venture style. In terms of the types of investments we've made, the majority of the capital we've deployed has been in layer 1 protocols. We also look on the venture side of the equity side. We have maybe a couple of key themes that we've invested in, so one of which would be what we call market infrastructure or protocol agnostic infrastructure. So these are things that will be sort of requisite building blocks either on top of or alongside the protocols themselves. Things like custody or wallets or exchanges. And then separate from that, we definitely are big fans of the DeFi concept. So decentralized finance as a category certainly is still very early. I personally sort of look at a lot of it as beta testing still, but it's something that seems quite important and something that we've been happy to be a part of.
Yeah, so Pantera Capital, I think first and foremost, we're long-term investors. And I've been in venture capital now for 9 years. Most of my career has been in investing in the VC game. So really, you know, I look at everything as, hey, we're going to go in and we're going to try to help these guys out over time, and it's going to be, you know, 5 to 10 year relationship. And every single investment that we've gone into, whether it's blockchain equity or non-blockchain equity, we still have positions in, and you know, we're continuing to help these companies. In terms of the way that we're structured, you know, we've been invested since 2013, so I think for us, it's really just being very adapted to how this new space is going to evolve. It's, you know, teams aren't going to look the same. You know, we're seeing a lot of distributed teams. Company fundraising structures are going to be, you know, quite different, and so, you know, for us, I mean, investing early on in infrastructure around exchanges, wallets, how do people get into cryptocurrencies, and then being able to see that strategy evolve into, you know, what 2017, 2018 turned into, and then now the market's going back to different type of infrastructure. Infrastructure that's supporting developers, infrastructure that's supporting institutions, and consumer products hopefully building on top of these protocols. And so, you know, for us, I mean, whether it is, you know, exchanges and wallets, or whether it's, you know, middleware, or whether it's still scalability or decentralized finance, I mean, we're going to place our bets strategically and create a diversified portfolio for all of our LPs.
So in addition, I agree with Sam and Paul, John, on some of the opportunities in terms of layer 1 protocols. And certainly decentralized finance or open finance is very interesting, and we spend a lot of time in the space. I think the other area I would highlight that we are very excited about on a go forward basis is what we like to call kind of industry bets. So we've made 2 of these today, one of which has been announced. It's called Helium. And Helium is, we have discovered is as the basic technology and infrastructure is maturing, there's people in industries kind of all over the world who are looking at blockchain and saying, hey, this, you know, this is a really interesting idea, trust minimized value, transport and such. How can I leverage this in my existing industry? And we're starting to just see the very first entrepreneurs in industries that have nothing to do with crypto, traditional, or nothing to do with blockchain, looking at this technology and saying, hey, how do I apply it? So Helium is the first investment we made that kind of falls in this bucket. We made a pretty aggressive investment there. We made one more since, both of which are actually in the telecom space. And I think as, you know, the next 2, 3, 4 years plays out, this infrastructure is going to be taken for granted, which is good. It becomes magical, it becomes invisible. And just as kind of the internet started to become invisible, call it 2000, 2002 time frame, we started to see just a wave of businesses take off who leverage this in media, in publishing, in productivity, whatever. I think we're going to see a similar trend play out. And so we are really excited about what we call industry bets broadly.
Thank you. Next, I want to ask one question regarding if you see in internet industry or other investments also about investing in cycles. When we look back at the past 4 or 5 years, starting 2015 till 19 now, it could be a cycle. So over the past cycle, there have been a lot of changes and developments in the blockchain space in terms of technology, investment in the market, and regulatory environment. So what are the major changes or developments do you think deserve our attention? And how did you respond to that change or development? Have you adjusted your strategy in a process, or are you reconsidering your strategy? this time, should we start with Kyle?
Sure. So we've certainly learned quite a few things over the last few years as we've been in the space, and we haven't changed any of our fundamental theses, which we have written on our website. We have, I think, changed our views on how we think some of those may play out. So for example, one of our primary theses is open finance or decentralized finance. And certainly in the Ethereum ecosystem today, it's very exciting to see things like Compound and Maker and all these other protocols starting to get meaningful adoption. The concern we have in that ecosystem is just that these teams are creating protocols for crypto, for blockchain enthusiasts to kind of lend to one another and borrow from one another, and they're not really expanding the market into kind of banking the unbanked kind of thing, which is one of the early promises of crypto. One view we've kind of come around to recently is that the major exchanges all over the world, in the US and Asia, Latin America, Europe, are really the on-ramps for people from fiat into blockchain, and we expect as that happens, those entities will kind of drive users and capital into decentralized finance, and it may not necessarily be the protocol of Ethereum. They may put them on their own chains or other kind of places that they feel counterintuitive. So, like macro thesis is unchanged, but the ways in which we're starting to see it be manifest are different than we originally anticipated.
Yeah, I guess I'll take a different just characterization of how we've adapted, and more on the infrastructure side. So, and as we've seen in 2017, there were a lot of different projects that were emerging and a lot of capital that went into the space. And what sort of changed it a little bit was around regulations, especially in the US. And so for us, we really had to just change the way that we structure our funds, which I think is, now we're registered with the SEC, and so being an RIA, there's things that come with that. And then on top of that, I think that's really changed how companies have fundraised on that side of things going forward. And I think it's fascinating to really see everything sort of resemble venture a bit, and everything sort of becoming a lot more long-term. And so, I think for one of our funds where we're investing into SaaS, we've had to sort of adjust there, and legally, also in terms of term sheets and all of that, sort of adjust with the space, and I think that's really good. I think that also brings a lot more investor protections, which is, I think, really important for those managing, limited partners. And I think another learning that we've learned is around the active hedge fund side of our business. Really trying to get better at analyzing different protocols, using data and resources where we can, and potentially, so I guess what is different is we are multi-strategy on the hedge fund side, so being able to hedge and protect ourselves through different cycles in the market is really important. And so really just kind of putting a bit more emphasis on active management on that side, and then continuing to adapt with the market legally and structurally.
So if 2015 through 19 is a cycle, one thing that comes to mind initially is just the dramatic amount of change in this whole industry since then. So 2015, Coinbase was a Bitcoin company, Binance didn't exist, the world was so different. So thinking, kind of fast forwarding to 2019, how the past couple of years have shaped up, certainly macro thesis remains the same. I think one way that we've changed the way we operate is being even more hands-on in the early stages at the protocol level. So working with some of our portfolio on things like consensus mechanism, on initial Genesis block distribution, things like this. Proof of stake is definitely a really big category for us. It's something we're excited about and being very active in supporting our portfolio with. So I think we're the largest, or among the largest staking validations in the world on 3 of our portfolio projects to date. That should continue to increase in number over time. So I think for us, it's understanding at a high level that things are going to continue to change really, really fast. and some of that change may be even more dramatic than we might expect. And our adjustments should be around how we can be more and more valuable for our portfolio.
Totally agree that. So what we have been doing, so we've seen the explosion of projects from 2017, I guess. It was a hot thing. Everybody was coming in. And then 2018 happened, and you don't see a lot of them around. If they are around, I don't think they have a very long runway anymore. So one of the big things that I've seen is maybe two things. Shorter runway, and they don't have an ability to, maybe they lack the ability to be adopted, try to get by companies. And that's an area where we see a lot happening currently at this stage. And that's why there's a shift towards them raising equities now instead of trying to raise it as before. So with that change, we started to take more proactive approach. We started to be more involved in the company, lending our leverage, our networks to the company. Working with guys like Polychain, Pantera, and all the other funds out there. We all have companies that want to work with your portfolio and your portfolio, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say, hey, ABC company wants to work with you, your portfolio. Is that possible? And I think that's something that has changed prior. Initially, everybody thought they could build something and see it through, but then they realized that they lack the business acumen, or maybe they lack the experience in the business world. I think that's where we should come in to help them, just not as a capital investment person, and that's it. But we should be more involved in bringing them up. If not, they will not survive. And I see that as something that has changed, at least for us.
Thank you, John. That's a good point. Let me continue asking more about how we can help our portfolio companies. I remember in previous conversation, you mentioned that blockchain startups still face a lot of expanding hurdles. So investors like us should work together, form a certain kind of alliance or partnership with excellent players in the local region, so we can help our portfolio grow and succeed. So would you elaborate a little bit on that idea?
So there was one side actually, I think I did mention that somewhere, I can't remember where. But we are making that a reality as we speak. We are creating a foundation based out of Singapore, and we're getting it chartered and maintained. And what this does is it allows projects, companies, to leverage on the licenses that we have, say broker-dealer license or derivatives license and so on and so forth, or the people in our network that you can tap on, and that's something that I think will be very strong. I think it just needs to be drafted out properly, and I think that if we could do something together, I think it's a lot of work. It's not going to be easy. It's a lot of work. We already busy on our schedules. To spend time doing this, it's really something that I don't see it at all right now in this space. I don't see us sharing a lot of information that could potentially help portfolios that we are in. And I think that if we could do something together, why not? And we are creating not just with the folks, but with the conglomerates globally. So we already have a couple of conglomerates who are drafting the mandate of the charter with us. And I would invite everyone here as well.
Thank you. So the next question is for Sam. I know that Polychain, besides investing on the primary market on projects, they are also actively involved in the secondary market. We see crypto assets as a new asset class, and the crypto secondary market is becoming more and more like traditional financial market. So could you share a a little bit on Polychain's practice and experience in crypto asset management?
So we're actually not active traders, so because we're long only, it doesn't take too much of our bandwidth to kind of get the positions that we want to get into. So that's not too much work. Interestingly, I think in this space, and probably the same for everyone up here, it's really been around the lack of infrastructure over the past couple of years, which fortunately is now changing, and things as simple as having to self-custody your assets are not something that traditional asset managers have to think about. So for us, I mean, the fact that once we have a position, we're holding it for a long time, we need to make sure that it's secure, obvious point, but it's one that you actually have to seek out in this space as opposed to traditional asset management. So I think that's all that comes to mind in terms of like what's special or unique about what we have to do. And I think, again, that goes across the board for all the funds in the space. In terms of secondary markets, we really only go there when we're looking to increase an existing position. So we do try to be very, very early, and the majority of our capital that we've allocated has been through primary transactions. But occasionally we will want to continue topping up certain positions. And for that, we will work with exchanges that we have long-standing trusted relationships with.
Thank you. Then Paul, you mentioned earlier in an early answer and earlier this year in the interview that you talked about the major shift, like Chao also mentioned, the major shift in ways of financing, shifting from issuing tokens to selling shares. So literally, like token issuance switching to equity fundraising. What do you think is the reason behind, and do you think this trend will continue?
For us, we're investing in teams. Teams, companies, they're going to pivot. I mean, they may start off doing one thing and then they go into another business model, or again, they may do a business model with fiat and then go into another business model issuing, digital currency. And, we want to be aligned with those companies. And so, I think it makes a lot of sense now, especially because, we're seeing capital allocators, go back into traditional VCs. We're seeing family offices coming in. We're seeing even endowments investing into projects. And we're seeing a lot more long-term holders, long-term investors coming into the space. And they want to be investing into whatever these teams end up, producing. And so for us, we want to have that flexibility where, we're aligned with the investor, we're aligned with the company, and, equity tokens. We're seeing a lot of hybrid deals now where, we're getting equity and tokens for the same amount of capital that we're investing. And so we feel that that's a great alignment, and, I think it's going to be a trend going forward. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that wherever the value accrues to, we're going to have a piece of that. And, I think that's a fair, equitable way to sort of structure things.
Thank you. Chao, many people in the Chinese community know you by your article. You wrote so many insightful articles. So I'm going to ask you one question regarding your recent article titled "Why the world computer should be logically centralized," which seems to be different to the mainstream idea of decentralization. Could you share your thoughts on this briefly? I know the article is long.
So one thing we've kind of observed is that, there are generally three types of decentralization in distributed systems. There's architectural decentralization, which kind of refers to the number of nodes in the system. There's political decentralization, which refers to the number of people who can exert control over that, whether it's changing rules or including transactions. And then the third type is logical decentralization, which kind of refers to the idea of, is there a single endpoint that is exposed by which one can access or use the system? And if you look at, there are a handful of systems on the internet today that are logically decentralized. CDNs come to mind, there are a handful of others. And what we've discovered is that generally speaking, systems that are logically decentralized are extremely hard and cumbersome to use because there's kind of not a single way to conceptualize integrating with the system. And so when we look at crypto and look at kind of the scaling challenges, a lot of the solutions are very clever technically, whether they're based on layer 2 systems or zero-knowledge proofs or sharding. But our concern is that all of these systems kind of fundamentally break the core tenet of a single logically centralized, neutral ledger or computer in the cloud. And although they don't break it perfectly, they start to kind of chip away at it. And the more heterogeneous these systems become, right? If there's a world where there's 1,000 plasma chains and a whole bunch of state channels and a whole bunch of zero-knowledge roll-ups here and there, and all these things, that navigating these systems, while it is certainly possible, it's just much more complicated kind of mechanically, it actually just creates a lot of application logic complexity for developers that we think is undue and unnecessary. And so the kind of the post that you're referring to was really written as an investment thesis for one of our investments called Solana, and we think they've kind of cracked the solution to scaling a single unsharded system. And if that's right, then what the kind of fundamental benefit that preserves is that there's a single logical endpoint to the entire system, and there's no heterogeneity in application logic or complexity or security models. We think that just the overall simplicity of the system just creates unlocks a lot of new value. And so we are huge proponents of architectural decentralization and political decentralization, but we believe pretty firmly that you want the system to be as logically centralized as possible.
Thank you. One final question for everyone of you. We all know that the blockchain space is evolving at a much faster pace than traditional industries. In the Chinese community, we have a saying that 练权一天，人间一年, which means one crypto day is like a whole year in traditional industries. So there have been never a lack of new topics, new terms, new buzzwords in this space. Like in the early days, smart contract scaling, layer 1, 2, 3, and recently we're talking about layer 4, DeFi, staking, all those areas. But many of them were popular for a very short period of time, and only a few of them bring real value and stay with us. So when looking into the coming 1 or 2 years, which ones do you think we will still be talking about and you will still consider investing? Start with John again.
Finance, man. I'll still be there. Basically, Southeast Asia. So Singapore, there's this whole finance is still a very strong play, even in the traditional sense of things. Investments. I'm still very bullish on finance. With DeFi right now.
Yeah, going back to the earlier comment, it always amazes me how quickly everything evolves in this space, and I think the expression you just shared with us is exactly right. We at Polychain, we do a quarterly call with our partners, with our LPs, to talk through the topics that are top of mind and the change to the portfolio. And every single time, I think day in and day out, when you're just in the space, you forget how much is happening so quickly, and you think that, oh, things are taking forever to play out, and you hear about a new trend and it takes forever to play out, and then you realize that only 3 months have passed, and you're already looking at new trends, looking at new companies. So the space evolves super, super quickly. I think the market infrastructure around it will continue to persist as an important investable opportunity, and just an area that we need to keep seeing those building blocks emerge.
Yeah, I agree with what all these guys said, and even some of the early sessions beforehand. At the end of the day, what we're hoping for is that middlemen will get disintermediated, and we're going to be continuing to invest around the theme of, hey, you know, let's just enable things to be peer-to-peer, and let's just, you know, hopefully bring the vision of decentralization forward, and you know, whatever form that may sort of, you know, evolve in terms of types of companies. I mean, it's going to be revolving around infrastructure, it's going to be revolving around dApps, and you know, that's something that we're going to stick to.
Yeah, so we've kind of publicly written about our kind of three, what we call mega theses for crypto. We define a mega thesis as something that we think has a market impact on the order of trillions of USD. And we pretty firmly, we spent years really thinking about kind of evolving our thinking on these to the point where we're pretty comfortable solidifying them, and we do not expect those theses to change really at all over the next decade. We expect to be investing in these theses in companies, in protocol teams, in blockchains over the next decade. Out of both our hedge fund and our venture fund, there's going to be a lot of unique opportunities in both primary and secondary markets for us to express those theses. I think what is likely to change is it's almost impossible to forecast the kind of exact mechanisms by which these theses will play out. And so, as a simple example, there was a company called 21 a few years ago, had very clever ideas about decentralizing mining. So like every smartphone in the world would have a mining chip on it. And it turned out that mining actually centralized quite a bit. So all of the kind of general theory of mining, there's a strong thesis on mining in 2013, that would be the wrong way to play the thesis. And so as we think about these three mega theses on a go-forward basis, we're always going to question. We have hypotheses about how we think they're going to kind of play out in terms of order of operations, but being very, always kind of doubting ourselves and saying, okay, are we seeing the data that suggests that maybe the way that these things come to market might be different than we expected? It's very painful to have the right thesis and make the bet on the wrong horse. And so we're always very, very cognizant of that. I think that's going to kind of continue to evolve over the next few years.
Thank you very much, guys. Let's do a proof of prediction. Next year on the 5th Global Blockchain Summit 2020, let's gather again and see what will happen and what will we still talking about. So thank you very much, everybody, for your time, your insights, your observation. Let's get together next year. Thank you.